Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining for this show. I don't usually do such elaborate interviews, but after I heard Asra Nomani on one of the interviews, especially on the Johnny Depp Amber Heard episode, I thought I definitely need to have this conversation with her. So, to share with all of you, Asra Nomani does not need any introduction, but I would still do the honors. Asra is a renowned author. She is a journalist. Her words have featured in one of the biggest organizations, media organizations across the world. She is a feminist who fights for Muslim women. She is a senior fellow with the Independent Women's Network and also the co-founder of the Muslim Reform Movement. I am absolutely privileged, honored to have you on the show with me today, Asra. And I think you have just come out of a very, very taxing, long trial that you saw personally. I don't know how many people actually got to see it firsthand, but you saw the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial, which the world was hooked to. So to begin this interview, first I would like to know, Asra, what was your experience seeing this trial firsthand? You were right there. What was it about?
Oh, yeah. Well, first, it's so wonderful to talk with you. It's such an honor for me to be with you and to talk to all your viewers and listeners. I am a daughter of India and I love my Indian family, and I just was so thrilled when I saw you retweet my message out there in the world and then connect with you on DM, just like all regular folks do. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you and everyone that follows you. So like I said, I'm a daughter of India. I came to the United States when I was 4, and little could I believe that some decades later, I would be living in Fairfax County, Virginia, which is right outside of Washington, D.C. It's one of the big, diaspora places. We have a lot of folks from India who have come to the Northern Virginia area for technology jobs. So people might have heard of this place called Loudoun County. It's right next door to Fairfax County. We're 20 minutes from the White House by drive. And there I live. I raised my son there, and Fairfax County, Virginia. And lo and behold, the #1 defamation trial of U.S. history, modern day history anyway, was happening in my hometown. So I do believe deeply that all politics is local, and I went then overnight on the eve of day 20 of the trial, and joined that mosh pit that starts Yeah, that starts lining up from the day before. And then I got a little wristband and ended up in court for day 20. And then I went again for the verdict.
All right. So what do you think? I'm sure you've seen this trial through and through. What do you think Asra really clinched the deal for in favor of Johnny Depp, especially in the light of a lot of articles now being written that it's a power, it was a power play. It was Johnny Depp held a lot of power over Amber in terms of whether popularity or his celeb status or money, of course. So a lot of people have varied views on why Johnny Depp won. What, according to you, is the reason why he won?
Yeah, I think several dynamics occurred here. One is that if anybody knows what libel is and defamation, it basically means that if you write an untruth about somebody, then you are held responsible. And so in the United States, like every other country in the world with democracy, we have free speech, but free speech does not allow lies to be published. And so this is something that I know from 3 decades as a journalist. And the only defense that we are told we have to libel is the truth. So really, truth was being adjudicated in the courtroom. Johnny Depp said that he was there for truth and justice, and ultimately, this was about the facts and the statements that Amber Heard had put forward in this controversial op-ed in the Washington Post, asserting that she had experienced both sexual violence and domestic violence at the hands of her ex-husband. So what the defense attorney for Amber Heard tried to assert was, her chronology of various incidents, but listening to them myself, as with a lot of other people, from the eyes of the jury, there was not enough evidence, and there were so many holes in Amber Heard's stories. And then, of course, there was the famous audio tape of Amber Heard admitting to having been violent with Johnny Depp. One other point that I want to make that I think your viewers and you might be interested in is that ultimately there were 7 jurors. So Fairfax County, Virginia is a place where there's 20% Asian population now. And the final jury diversity was 4 Asians, 1 woman who may or may not have been Asian. She might have been Caribbean but 4 were East Asian, possibly with roots in China. From just visually looking at them. Then, like I said, the 1 woman who could have been Asian or Black Caribbean or something like that, but of color. So that's 5 people right there, you guys, that are of diversity, and then 2 white men. So we had a very diverse crowd. And I think this is really important, because what was on trial was this fundamental concept of whether or not domestic violence can happen by a woman and a man in any, way, both one way or the other, woman as a victim or as an abuser, man as a victim or a man as an abuser. And I think, and thinking about talking to you, like, we all know family dynamics,
Yeah.
That's what you cannot try to jingle your way out of with a campaign like Believe Her or Believe All Women. We all know what we have seen in our family dynamics, and family dynamics are very complicated. And the truth is that most of us at some point or another, whether in our direct family or an extended family, have seen women as abusers.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's just a truth,
Yeah.
and that is not to say, of course, women are targets of abuse always, but interestingly also, many of the people in the courtroom came from roots in Latin America. And I talked to a woman from Ecuador, and she said, we know, it can go either way. And so this jingle, that this is the newest piece that I'm writing for a place called The Federalist, and we'll share the link. It'll be published here, is that this verdict was not just a victory for Johnny Depp, but it was an indictment of this entire movement that they now call Believe Her. And the ultimate victor and the victory here is for due process.
Correct. I think that's where my next question also sorts of aligns. And I'll come to what's happening in India later. I would actually want to share with you. And
Yes.
I think the world really needs to know the kind of injustices that are happening in India. But so my next question is, we saw a lot of, I personally have followed the trial quite a lot, Asra. And although it does give you a sense of, disgust, but it's a fact that Amber Heard did face a lot of hate and memes and then mockery of her trial. Now, of course, it did not start on the first day. It started when, after Johnny Depp had presented his evidence, after that those audio were played out, after Amber tried to, sort of recreate a lot of allegations that had never been, said before, and all of a sudden they came at the time of trial. But the fact is, there was a lot of hate and mockery of Amber Heard. Now, a lot of feminists and a lot of media outlets are now calling it misogyny, and if I may actually discuss the headlines of a Washington Post article, if I'm
Right.
not wrong, is it was an orgy of
Mm,
misogyny, you know.
right.
So what are your views on that? I mean, a lot of people, if a man would have done something horrible to a woman and it was proven, and it was out there for all to see, do you think a man would have also been subjected to this? Or do you think we are very quick to now sort of come to conclusions when it comes to cases like these, especially between men and women? Or do you think it was kind of, these pent up emotions that, this man was abused, and he was put through so much for the last 6 years, and this is sort of our moment to that he is able to tell his truth? So how do you view this as, Asra?
Yeah, I'm really so glad you brought this up, in the interest of fairness, because I think, one of the principles, I am from a Muslim family, but, I do believe deeply in the principle of namaste. And what does namaste mean is that I honor and see the divine within you. So we have to recognize that even when somebody seems to have behaved very badly, as, many people have fairly concluded Amber Heard behaved, um, she's a human being.
Yeah.
And I personally, as a matter of ethos, never retweet anything with a hashtag that even calls her a liar or says the Amber Turd idea, the stuff, because what is all of that? That is all the dynamics of dehumanization.
Correct.
And I understand the instincts that people have to mock, and, it's like getting revenge on somebody that you see as a diabolical character now. But ultimately, she's not well. It is not just me saying that, it's the clinical psychologist. And I am certain that in her life, she had a very difficult and troubling childhood, just like Johnny Depp. And that is what is, to me, the deeper lesson of both these stories is two figures that are of public renown who came really from the most ordinary of upbringings here in the United States. She outside of Austin, Texas. He from this country town in Kentucky. Two very troubled families, not well off by any stretch of the imagination, and very dysfunctional. And the lesson, I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, each one of us has a duty within our families to try to make our family dynamic as healthy as possible. The consequence for Amber was, some level of pathology that got expressed in their marriage. And the same happened for Johnny Depp, right? It was the many years of abuse that he experienced at his mother's hand, that he was repeating that dynamic in the marriage. And ultimately, the thing that we all have to do is try to be healthy in our own lives and in our family dynamic, and then we can contribute to society. But that's where then your question is so important, because we are part of a global family. This is not to be Pollyanna or anything like that, but what we express, what we say becomes part of this consciousness. It literally becomes a trending hashtag, and India has a power to make anything trend, so I just say, if I could just get my, family and friends in India to like something of mine, I've gone viral. That's the upside of having 1 billion people on your side.
Absolutely.
But but we have the power, as a people to impact others' lives. And ultimately, Amber Heard is a mother with a young child, and we all would wish for that child to now grow up in the most healthy environment possible. And we ourselves should not stoke anybody else's unhealthiness. And that's why, thank you so much for, just extending that point, because if in any way we can catch ourselves from that judgment, then we stop that cycle, that is what leads to emotional abuse for sure, and then potentially physical abuse. And I think it becomes like some people have equated this to mob. I mean, I thought that the orgy headline was just such classic clickbait, and it was so sick really on this point. But let's all like rise to the best of ourselves, right? Like that's what we want in our own lives and in our families. And then we should do that also as a global conversation, because Johnny Depp has his victory, and you can see in him like the role model of somebody. He didn't even come into the courtroom, right? And I think his absence spoke volumes about how he is moving to try to find healthiness, that concept we have of India of Shanti. Like
Yeah.
he is trying to seek that and find that for himself. So
Yeah.
let's be part of that positive healing.
Very true. I think that's probably the biggest lesson which Johnny Depp fans actually need to take away. He was not here for revenge. He was not here to mock. He was just here to tell his side of the story. And I think he told it with dignity, I think, and with solidarity with the team that he had for himself. And,
Right.
investing faith in the team that he had. I mean,
Yes.
I've often seen his expressions in the videos. I think the most exciting part of this entire thing was that there was a lot of body language reading as well, of Amber, of Johnny, of Amber's lawyers, and of Johnny's lawyers. And I think people were very intelligent to actually make out what was happening
Oh,
really as
yeah.
well. So I think that also played a major role, I guess, here. Now, Asra, Amber called herself when she wrote this article, and I'm not really sure if she actually wrote that article, because from what we
She
know
did
is
not.
ACLU actually wrote this for her, right? And
Yeah.
then Washington Post published. In fact, some people were joking that if the damage money should be given by ACLU and Washington Post instead, and
Right.
everyone got really, bashed between all of this. But then, anyways, that aside, so Amber,
Right.
at that time wanted to. For the lack of anything else better, I think I would want to put at she wanted to become the poster girl of the Me Too movement.
Yes.
And there was so much impetus on that movement that time that anyone who would come over there and make a noise was being made a star.
Right.
And then it sort of now backfired, and there are a lot of women organizations that have come out. There are a lot of women who have suffered abuse and stated that they were victims of domestic violence or sexual violence, and come out and said that, no, you do not represent us, right?
Mm.
So
Mhm.
uh, why do you think that women also eventually alienated themselves with Amber Heard, except of course the bandwagon of believe all women and believe
Mhm.
her, that category of people. But except that, normal everyday women, a lot of them came out in, on social media and said, no, Amber Heard, you do not represent us. How do
Mm.
you see this shift?
Yeah, and standing there in the line, the night that I stayed there, I got there at 7 p.m. I was number 34. And so the courtroom allows for 100 visitors inside. You wait all night then for your little wristband, and predominantly women in that group. And like I said, many people from immigrant communities. I think ultimately Johnny Depp's vulnerability connected his story to women who have also felt vulnerable. And we know that vulnerability does not have to know gender.
Absolutely.
Everybody can know vulnerability. I'm the mother to a son, and if boys can feel vulnerability, and they are also such brutal victims, of sexual assault and violence, unreported so often in the most, sad tragedies, especially in our subcontinent. It's obviously also the case in America and the West, but our subcontinent, we have too many times boys that are preyed upon.
And they're not even heard.
They're never heard. And,
Yeah.
like I was just talking to somebody about the phenomena of bachabazi in Afghanistan, where it's a, you know, it's, I hate to even say those words because it's dancing boy as if it's a good thing, but, where boys become prey for older men to have sex with so that they can realize their, sexual desires without, quote, doing it on a girl. But like boys
Yeah.
life and trauma is now just set into this young heart, and that's a crisis.
Yeah.
So there's so much like that that I think where so many women are able to see, and they transcend the jingles that have been put forward by the Me Too and Believe Her movement. I'm glad you described me as a feminist, because I am a feminist. Of course, I want women's rights and girls' rights, but I want human rights. Like, if women's rights means human rights, then we have to care about human rights. And in human rights, we care about all people, however they are defined in society. Any act of oppression or violence is unacceptable. So I think that's the connection that women have had with Johnny Depp, is from that place. They know what it means to feel vulnerable, and they could see in him a vulnerable human being.
Right. Another thing that I think comes to my mind right now when you talk about human rights and why women saw Johnny Depp as someone who was vulnerable, even though for years it's Amber Heard who had described herself as a victim. Um, do you think there are a lot of women today who are absolutely capable and absolutely unabashed about manipulating this believe her or believe all women jingle, Asra, the way you said it? Do you think they're emotional manipulators, not just in their relationships but in the media as well? I think this
Well,
came out really strong, particularly in this case.
yeah. So what happened for me is that I wanted, I'm being a reporter, I want to see something eyewitness and feel the dynamic, feel the energy in the room. So I can tell you that Amber Heard's attorney was just talking just so much lies when she did her little unapologetic, tour after the loss, and tried to now blame the jury, which now everybody knows it's like a mostly minority jury. Okay, so she's saying that they were confused and they're going home and reading social media. Like, it's so insulting, honestly, to hear her say these things. But one thing that really struck me about her was she said she tried to set up the courtroom that it was like a Roman amphitheater, like as if the Johnny Depp fans were there, like vultures, right, on the carcass. And it was nothing like that. Like, if you dared to even bring out your phone to look at your text messages, you were thrown out. If you dared to laugh or smile, like, too obviously, the marshal came over to you and said, and would literally do this, zip it. So that idea is just nonsense. And sure, it was overwhelmingly for Johnny Depp, but everybody was dignified and professional. I mean, so what would happen is that people would camp out overnight, and then you get the wristband at 7 a.m., 5 a.m., people would go to their car to change into a suit, and then they would do their hair and their makeup well so that they could approach this like it's a job, like you're going into the workplace, you want to look your best. So that was a really interesting, that they really took it seriously. But the thing is, what I did then over the last 2 weeks is I've been working nonstop on this new piece to understand and dissect this Believe Her movement and how it happened. And what I was able to absolutely see the TikTok on was that Amber Heard made her allegation in 2016, and within weeks she was on the cover of People magazine.
Yeah.
And then the next month she was in Glamour magazine giving out an award and doing the reading for this woman where there was a criminal conviction of a Stanford swimmer who had had a sexual assault, and there was a conviction there. But she then became this, poster girl, as you
Yeah.
said. And then fast forward, so many Glamour articles, so many Vogue references to this domestic violence survivor. And you go forward 2 years, and now she's the ACLU ambassador. They write, place, and promote op-ed. And what is she doing? She's hitting on every single issue that is the political landscape of America right now, whether when it comes to the issue of women's rights, this thing called Violence Against Women Act, this thing that's called Title IX for protection in schools. But in each one of these is a narrative embedded into it of women as victims, men as criminals. And that's not fair. And that's what I think ultimately the society has said enough. Like we've gone through 2 decades of this. Sometimes you get it right, and many times you get it wrong. But a really critical part of that process that I was able to identify was that in Washington, D.C., there was a firm called SKDK, and it was the publicity firm for many of these women. So it would be, this woman, Christine Ford, who made the allegations against Kavanaugh, and then other women throughout our country, where the allegations would fall apart. And one of the most famous cases that has transpired, of course, is this one case in University of Virginia, where Rolling Stone did this huge package, and they ended up having to retract it, and they ended up having to pay millions of dollars for defaming the admissions counselor or the University of Virginia official. The solution is not vigilante justice. And that's what the Believe Her movement was putting forward, was vigilante justice was the hashtag of turning the tables on shame. And like that tragic story that you said, forcing somebody to give themselves capital punishment, to kill themselves in order to just punish themselves. Of course, to end your life is the greatest punishment to yourself, right? And we can't do that as a society and expect justice for anyone. So really our goal has to be justice for all, and whoever it may be.
All right. A lot of people have argued, Asra, that, a man's dignity or defamation or reputation should not really be important. If I were to say if I could understand what they're saying, as compared to the lived experiences of women, because there's just so many women who go through abuse on a daily basis, on an everyday basis. So even if it has to be vigilante, like MeToo, or if it has to be, so open-ended like MeToo, it is okay for them. What is the danger that you see if we have to actually be okay with that kind of process and system, or no process and system? What is the danger that you see?
The danger is injustice. That's a fundamental cost that society pays. And I say this about everything, which is, if that dynamic of injustice may work out for you at this moment, but just turn the table, flip the narrative, and is this the dynamic you want for society? Like, you have to approach everything from an ethical perspective of fairness for all. And so was it okay for men to get away with abuse of women and girls for so many centuries without any process where we could get justice? Absolutely not. Is it okay now for us to mete out that kind of punishment against men? No, it wasn't right before, and it's not correct now. And this is the same lens by which we have to look at so much of this cancel culture stuff that's happening in society right now. I think Johnny Depp's case speaks to the overreach that we have had in thinking we're correcting past injustices. You do not correct past injustice with new injustice. And the word in Urdu is insaf, right, for justice. And you cannot realize that if you are acting in a way that's cruel, or dehumanizing. And that's why in Victory, like, the Johnny Depp fans need to express Victory with the same dignity that Johnny Depp is carrying himself. And ultimately, like, humanity, right? Like, he was embarrassed at the text messages that he sent to his friends when he was like raging, right, in anger,
Yeah, true.
you know. But that was not an indictment of him then, for normal people, because we've all been there. Like, we go off with a friend, or, it's not the best of us, and we don't want to share that with the world, and most of us don't, and he really didn't with the world. um but that's who we are as imperfect beings. But at the end of the day, like, now in this moment of, like, is he going to rub Amber Heard's nose in, embarrassment? No, he's not doing that. He just stood up for himself. And they say that she can't afford this is typical in America, where you will get a civil claim, this big claim that they've got, multi-million-dollar claim, and it's very hard to get it paid. Like, people really don't go into civil cases expecting that you're going to actually get the cash. So I'm absolutely certain that, he's not going to be chasing her down for that money. And really, his victory is in simply getting the win and the decision by the jury, and really in the court of public opinion, right? Like,
Yeah.
winning that is just turned his life around, hasn't it? Like,
Now I'm sure. I just hope there are good things over there waiting for him to happen. I
oh,
think
I'm
he's just
sure.
gone through a lot. I'm sure Amber has also gone through a lot, but the difference that I see between both of them, Asra, is um, she did whatever she did. And although our cultures are very different, but we have seen those videos where while he was with Johnny Depp, she was with Elon Musk and she was with James Franco. And there are videos where those men have come right in the house of Johnny Depp, and whatever was happening was happening. So while the texts sent by Johnny Depp have been, indictment of his wrong behavior in some people's minds, strangely, they fail to look at what Amber was doing in the relationship, which is so strange. But what really, as a human being, connects me with Johnny Depp more is he did say sorry. And he did say that I'm not a
Mm,
saint. Look, I am
right,
not a saint. I have done very, very immoral and wrong things in my life, but
right.
I am admitting that I have done all those wrongs. But Amber still, despite so many audios and despite so many things coming out in the open, she was unapologetic. Not for
Yeah,
once, did she have anything to say that, she was, even for a remotest moment, was wrong towards Johnny Depp.
yeah,
She was instead only challenging him. So I think that also swayed the public emotion a lot towards Johnny,
right.
because they saw him as a person who was admitting the wrongs. What do you think, Asra?
Oh, yeah. I mean, to this point, I just want to also bring people to where I've come to understand issues of brain health, because what we're dealing with is we have to really look at it from a neuroscience almost of both folks injured in childhood traumas that express themselves in unhealthy ways in their adulthood. And that's the cycle that we all need to break in our lives. But there is a dynamic, and I don't know, honestly, whether or not this is related to narcissism or borderline personality disorder. But definitely in brain health, there is this word that's called anosognosia. It's this famous, sorry, it's not famous, it's this fancy Greek word. And it
Hmm.
means, it's a word that means that you do not have insight. And so the kind of people that we can understand it with usually are stroke victims, because, like, if you lose use of your right arm, your brain does not have the understanding insight that the right hand can't work. And you might even, like, go to pick up the phone and then the phone drops because you don't realize that you don't have that capacity. It as you know, like, we've seen enough people in society, right? We know ourselves. Sometimes we just, like, lose it, right? And we don't have
Yeah,
insight. We're
yeah,
so caught up in our emotion or whatever, and it might be temporary, but for sometimes the pathology can be very deep. And I do believe, like, exactly what happened after the verdict of, like, I mean, overwhelming conviction of defamation, right?
yeah.
There was no insight. There was
Yeah.
absolutely no insight. And I know that like for a lot of people, that's like more evidence to, indict Amber Heard. But to me, I take it as more evidence of just her being that she's not well. And that we know this in our own lives. We know people like this who will not admit a problem, right? And it is in the brain. It is in the way that your brain circuitry works. And I think that's what's happening here. And then you end up, getting people around you who support you, like her lawyer did, right? Like going out and defaming Johnny Depp even more, and then the
Yeah.
jurors, and then the judge, you
Yeah.
know. But
Everyone seems to be against them. Just
yeah,
probably they don't realize that the truth is, against them for the lies.
yeah. And I think that, like, again, I go back. That's why I really enjoyed the idea of talking with you, because so much of my observations about this world is informed by my Indian roots. And there's another concept that comes out of Buddhism. And, in Hindu practice, we also have it in meditation. But it's in Sri Lanka, it's called Vipassana meditation. And a lot of people have heard of insight meditation, mindfulness meditation. So that's what like I do as a journalist, right? That's what you do observing society for your channel. Well, that's what I think, like we're all benefited when we do that with others also. Just kind of observe what she's doing, Amber Heard, in this case of denial, and just see like what is happening instead of getting attached to it, right? Like that's a big concept in Hindu philosophy, is like having that non-attachment. So let us also not get attached to her response, right? As
Yeah.
like her pathology, like that kills, like just consumes us. It is just what it is, and it's part of her unwellness to me.
True.
Yeah.
Um, I think I have most of the questions with me that I wanted to ask from you, Asra. Now, just this last thing on what's your view on very one-sided discourse on gender issues across the world today? And do you think men feel completely ignored and sidelined because no one talks about their abuse, their pain with the same empathy and compassion
Mm,
the way they do for women? And one side of the question is this, and the other side of the question is, now a lot of women are born into privileged backgrounds in today's society. They get absolutely equal opportunities and everything which is similar, like in a nutshell, there are a lot of women, there are a lot of young girls who are born into the same privileges or the same facilities or the same opportunities like a boy. uh, do you think the young boys across the world who live with women who have all the opportunities and facilities and who see they have absolute equality and there's no difference, do you think they can understand this whole idea of siding always with her because there's been a history of oppression? Do you think they can
mm,
empathize with that situation? Because a lot of understanding of this predominant uh, siding with women or predominant empathy with women, or just always believing that the woman is the right one and the man is the wrong, do you think our young boys are even prepared for a world like that? And do you think they
yeah.
feel ignored and sidelined?
Yeah, it's so interesting. And I'm now mother of a boy I've raised into this the generation. He's 19 years old now. I raised him as a single mother. I never had his father in our lives. And I always had my parents. They were the co-parents for me. And his Nani and Nana are, beloved to him. When he gets into a fight with his mom, he runs to his grandma. And that's the thing that can make me the happiest in the world. Um, but I think that, I did feel this raising my son. I did feel like, wow, we are again, course correcting past injustices with such a lopsided opportunities for girls and women. For example, with coding, I was a coder when I was 18, and I definitely wish I'd stayed coding. I'd, have a job for the rest of my life, because it was Fortran that I was learning, which nobody learns anymore. And I'd have a job forever. But, I didn't stay in the field. I didn't get encouraged like a lot of girls didn't get back in the 80s. And I know that we need to fix that, right? But then I see too that, wow, there's so many opportunities for the girls and women, and so much like empowerment circles and mentorships and all of this. And definitely in America, and I think India is seeing the same, like the test result numbers, the graduation rates are so much lopsided now towards women and girls. And of course we want their success, but like with all things, we cannot forget the human beings that are the part of our society. And that's where I hope that we will course correct also. And we will make sure that there's opportunities for them, for the boys, that we don't immediately assume that they are the criminals, whenever something may happen. That's a problem that we've had in the United States as part of the overreach on campus, a sexual assault. Boys would lose their rights to due process in the school systems and get thrown out, and sometimes face criminal charges, and never be able to appropriately defend themselves. So we absolutely have to fix the problem for everyone. In my Muslim community, we're still struggling with a situation where women can't enter every mosque, right? Yeah. Through the main door. That in countries where the Islamic law defines even criminal law or civil law, a woman is 2 women equal 1 man as a witness, So this is just clear math injustice, right? Yeah. I went down to Tamil Nadu, where women had started building a women's mosque because the mosque was the men's mosque, and that's where all the family law decisions were being made without a woman's input. So clearly, like, we have to correct, the injustices, but we have to do it for all people, just like you said. Like we can't, the old saying that the boy would get the meat, right? Or if you eat meat in your house, or he would get more of the sabzi or whatever it may be, that he would get more of the nutrition, right? Yeah. But we can't starve the boy now, as our correction. Yeah, we have to feed all, especially all children.
That's so true, and so wisely said, Asra. Just my last question, Asra, what do you think the future? She's not going to appeal. Her lawyers have clearly stated that she doesn't have the money to give the damages, and she's going to go and appeal. What do you think the future holds for Johnny Depp and Amber Heard?
Yeah, I think she will lose. This is going to go to the appeals court, and the appeals court will uphold this jury's decision. There's no, reason to believe that they're going to return it back or overturn it. And like with all civil judgments, you end up with a plan. Then you dock the pay of the person who's got it. If they get earnings regularly, you do this, that, or the other. But typically, like I represented I was actually an expert witness in a very tragic case of a young Indian son of whose mother had her pension and all of this in her bank account, and he had actually taken her money. And so I was the witness in that case, and the judgment returned in the favor of the mom, but then the young man declared bankruptcy, and then the court can't get to your cash. He just said that he didn't have a job anymore. In the state of Virginia, they don't go after your home. Your home is considered protected asset. So, nobody's going to take her home. Johnny Depp's not going to throw her and her kid out on the road, on the streets. Nothing dire will happen in her life. It might take 20-year payment plan, which I'm sure he'll never even spend $1 trying to collect. But meanwhile, the ACLU, like you mentioned before, who single-handedly wrote the op-ed, placed it in the Washington Post, publicized it. They have taken Johnny Depp to court to get him to pay $80,000, which is like literally, a few months salary for their executive director. He gets paid so much money. A 1 month salary, it might be, these guys get paid so much. They're suing him to pay back how much it cost them to go through their own emails that showed proof that they were behind these shenanigans, so it's such drama. India doesn't have a monopoly on tamasha.
I like that. I really like that. Our tamashas are very different, Asra. There are just so many cases here that I would love to see a trial like this for. There's a very famous actor. He's also member of parliament here. His name is Anubhav Mohanty. He's from Orissa, and he's still very popular over there. Has acted in a lot of movies, and he's undergoing a very, very bitter matrimonial dispute with his wife. And for 2 years, he has been just battling it, and because he's the man and she's the woman. He filed divorce first, saying he was never allowed by his wife to have conjugal relationship.
Oh.
And he has evidences to prove that. He has conversations with his own sister-in-law, and he has a lot of things with him. And he waited and waited and waited, and he had a lot of shame. Exactly what you were talking about, that there shouldn't be any shame. And I so agree with you. He felt, that if he would come out, what will people say? But eventually he did file for it because he was not able to live in that marriage. And the moment he filed for divorce, his wife has gone ahead and filed a domestic violence case on him, a cruelty case on him, a maintenance case on him. And now when he said stated his side of the story, she has again gone back to the court and taken an injunction that he cannot say anything. Imagine a member of parliament had to leave his own home, because when his parents were staying in that place, she would just bring in criminal charges against them, one after the other or the other. And they were just so tired that they decided to leave their own home. And that's reality of so many men in India who are undergoing matrimonial disputes. And there are a lot of other celeb cases as well that have happened in India, where I wish, we had a publicized trial like that, because there are a lot of men in India who are victims of false allegations today. A lot of, in fact, it's something that has happened just today, Asra, and I'll of course send you my documentaries, and I've been working on this for a very long time. Just today, the Delhi High Court has quashed a rape case that a woman filed on her old father-in-law, and the court said that, and she took 10 lakh rupees, and then said there was no rape, and we should just. I'm okay if you just let the case be quashed, and I just want to move on with my life. And the court said, ordinarily we would not have quashed a rape case, but this is a matrimonial dispute. And there are just so many cases in India right now. It's just horrible what's happening here. The courts have identified that this is a case of abuse and false allegations, but still there's absolutely no punishment for the women who are lying through their teeth in the court of law. And this is one reality where the bigger, of course, problem, of course, remains that there are a lot of women who do not even report very, very serious crimes done to them. And there's a lot of crimes against women. There's a lot of suffering. But there's a lot of injustice on men as well, which just going so unnoticed and ignored. So I completely agree with your point that we cannot course correct the injustices of the past with injustices in the present or future. I think that's just very wrong. So it was amazing talking to you, Asra. Thank you so much for having this conversation with me, and I hope we get to talk about such cases or such issues more often.
Absolutely. And I want to invite you and all your viewers to join me at this place that I've started at called the Independent Women's Network. I want all my Indian brothers and sisters to become members. It's free. You just go to iwnetwork.com. So iwnetwork.com and joined as a member, because I think it's just will be amazing if we all with clear minds, come together so that we have these solutions that are fair, balanced, represent truth and justice, and we have these nice global solutions, right?
I am definitely becoming a part, Asra. I am becoming a part tonight itself for sure. And I would love to share my work, and if it could make any difference or, uh, any impact in the lives of people who know this is happening, but, often do not get to talk about it. So
yeah, because we have to understand that, Johnny Depp and Amber Heard they're each one of us, they're ordinary, they came from ordinary beginnings, and they are a family dynamic like so many family dynamics. And I think that's why this court case resonated so much across the world. It hit a nerve for every one of us that has seen family dynamics as it happens. Sometimes the families can bring out the best of us and sometimes the worst in us, right? And that's what everybody knows, and it can happen any which way. So let's all work together around the globe to make healthy families, healthy lives.
Thank you so much, Asra, once again for joining me. Lovely talking to you.